Hey everybody, it's Christina Holloway here. Welcome back to my channel. Feeling stuck in your role is frustrating, especially when you know you're capable of so much more. In today's video, I'm breaking down 6 key reasons you might be overlooked, and more importantly, how to fix them. Whether you're trying to step into a leadership position or take the next big step in your career, these tips will help you stand out and get noticed. Also, I'm connecting all of this with the work I did last year with one of my clients who negotiated a better position for herself with a raise and better benefits. Stick around until the end because I'm sharing a bonus tip on how you can fast track your promotion this year. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to take you through 6 areas that I think are critically important to positioning yourself strongly for a promotion or bigger responsibilities. Now, last year I worked with a woman who was a director at a very large company, and she wanted to get to the next level in her career. That would have been a senior director. And she had been a director for about 10 years when I started working with her. So she was very well positioned to get a promotion. In fact, she should have had one already, but she was getting a lot of pushback. We don't have the position, there isn't enough money, you might need to move to another department, but you're doing such great work here. All excuses for why they wouldn't give her the promotion that she should have had at least 3 years earlier. Now, you might be thinking, well, a director's a director, and that's true. There are a lot of layers that companies will create specifically so they can make it look like you're getting these promotions. In reality, the only thing that made a difference for my client was that she wasn't invited to specific leadership conferences and meetings that were critically important for her success because of her title. But her peers were included. She was the only one who still hadn't been promoted, so she was left out. That can be problematic if you're trying to get people, decision makers, to notice you. Ultimately, we worked on getting her promoted to executive director, which skipped that middle level and bumped her up in salary by another $100,000. So let's start here with making sure you're in the right room. Reason number 1, lack of visibility. You're doing great work, but no one knows about it. Or actually, people know about it, but not the right people. Here's why that happens. Many times, people will assume their results will speak for themselves. But here's the reality. Leaders and decision makers are busy people. They're not always aware of the contributions happening behind the scenes. So just like with my client, she knew that in order for people to see her as a next level leader, she needed them to see her in those meetings and contributing in those meetings. And that was a big problem for her. And it's something she mentioned very early on when we were working together. So here's how to deal with that, especially if your current title prevents you from getting the visibility you need. Take a moment to ask yourself, when was the last time a key decision maker acknowledged your contributions? If you're drawing a blank, it's time to take action. First, make sure that you're leading or co-leading important projects that will be presented to these next level leaders in their status meetings. Make sure that you're also contributing to the status updates with your name aligned to your responsibilities. If you can't be in the room, make sure your accomplishments are discussed. Also, start having status update calls with those stakeholders. If they don't see you in the meetings, make sure they see you outside the meetings. I tell my clients this a lot. Those stakeholders don't know you want to get promoted unless you make it clear to them that this is what you want from them. I'd like to have status updates with you. I'd like some advice. I'd like to join some one-on-one calls with my co-lead. This is the reason I'd like to have a meeting with you. Put yourself out there and make it very hard to be ignored. So that's the first thing I did with my client. Who needs to know that you want this promotion? So she told me that there was a skip level who knew her and was influential. So she scheduled a meeting with him on his calendar. She could only get 30 minutes. So we worked on making sure she made her ask in the first 10 minutes. This is what I want to talk to you about today. There's a reorg happening at the company and positions are going to become available. I believe I should have one of those positions. That's exactly what she said. And he agreed with her. And then he connected her with someone on his team who was in charge of filling those roles. Reason number two, misaligned priorities. You might be working hard, but if your efforts aren't aligned with organizational goals, they may go unnoticed. Have you been assigned projects and responsibilities that are not that important? Well, somebody needs to do this, so give it to this person. It's common to look at tasks that feel urgent or would be comfortable for you to complete. If I do it right or I do it well, then they'll appreciate it. But if they're not important tasks and they're not tied to the company's bigger picture, then no one is really going to think you're working on something relevant or stretching yourself with more challenging tasks. Urgent tasks are not always important tasks. Don't be a fixer. I have a video on that right here. So, back to my client. This is where priorities were misaligned. She wanted to go from director to senior director. While we were working together, the company decided to go through a reorganization and they decided that there were too many layers at the director level. That meant that the one position she had been hoping for, senior director, was now going to be eliminated. Her opportunity of getting that next level promotion was now gone. In order to address this, she scheduled a meeting with the person her skip level recommended. We'll call him Evan. He confirmed that the senior director positions were going to be eliminated, but there would be executive director positions. And my client knew without question that she was qualified for any of those executive director positions. So she needed to make sure that Evan knew and understood her current job, her responsibilities, her certifications and qualifications, and her contributions to this point that positioned her well for that executive director job. Where was she misaligned? She was focusing too much on the next opportunity in front of her instead of thinking about where she really belonged. She was thinking too small, and she was accepting what they told her without questioning what they were telling her. This is a big problem. Are the tasks you're focusing on today positioning you for where you want to be in 5 years? For example, if you want a leadership role, are you taking on cross-departmental projects or leading teams? Does it align with what you really want in your career? Where has it gone off track? And what do you need to do to put it back on course? You may find that you need to be creative with what kind of job you do next. Schedule a one-on-one with your manager and get clarity on what the career path looks like and if anything's changed. You may find that you're now qualified for something you didn't think you could get before. Reason three, weak relationships with key stakeholders. This is where it starts to get interesting for my client. The third reason is weak relationships with key stakeholders. Promotions often depend on more than just your direct manager's recommendation. This is true. So let's talk more about Evan. He was turning into a weak link, where before my client had been connecting with him because the skip level said Evan would handle her request. Evan had other ideas for filling those executive director positions because one, he didn't really acknowledge or understand the skip level's directive, and two, he had his own agenda. My client scheduled calls with him repeatedly about the open positions, and he told her to look at what was out there on the jobs portal and decide on the one she wanted. Then she noticed that some of the positions were getting filled with outside candidates, and that didn't sit well with my client, who was more than qualified for any of those positions. Then Evan stopped taking her calls and said that there would be a delay in filling the one position she really wanted. Okay, so that's a weak relationship with a key stakeholder. And all the while, my client's boss had been advocating for her to get any one of these positions because her boss didn't want to lose her. And that was a giveaway. Even though my client's promotion would have made her peers with her boss saw that her contributions were really valuable. Why was that a giveaway? As soon as I realized that certain people were worried my client could quit, we started having different conversations. If you're struggling with weak links among important stakeholders, consider creating an influence chart where you map out key stakeholders at your company. Start by listing your key stakeholders, your manager, peers, and senior leaders. Next, identify who has decision making power or influence over promotions. Then, think about how you can build stronger connections, whether it's through collaboration, regular updates, or casual networking. This might feel a little bit like playing politics, but it's really about building trust with influential people and finding advocates. Reason number four, lack of leadership presence. Now, you might think that my client, who is qualified for the executive director position, has real leadership presence, but there was a lot of room for improvement here. Even if you're excelling in your role, you need to be seen as someone ready to lead. Did Evan think my client was ready to lead? Well, if you show up to meetings where you're going to ask for something really big, like a promotion, and you end up feeling like you're asking permission to even be there, then your executive presence needs some work. My client needed to talk to Evan like he was her peer, and she needed to spend more time making statements instead of asking questions. Do you think I could have one of those executive positions? Is not the same as saying, it's clear one of those positions will be mine. How are you going to make that happen, Evan? And look, we all need to work on our leadership presence. It's about communication, confidence, and decision making. For my client, she allowed these stakeholders to shape the narrative. She went along with it. They said, of course, you deserve the promotion. Of course, I'll put you in touch with someone. Of course, one of those jobs will be yours. Until it wasn't. And the whole time while she was letting them take the lead on the narrative, she was being a little passive about the progress. They said they have no updates. She found out that they were hiring externally when she checked for the job posting and it was listed externally. And it's okay to talk to external candidates, but my client realized she was no longer the front runner for the positions and she might have serious competition for the role. If you're struggling with your executive presence, then practice articulating your ideas clearly and persuasively. Don't use filler statements like, what do you think? Or does that sound okay? Use ask statements. This is a great technique. Instead of, do you think I could possibly get assigned to that big project? Make sure you say something like, that big project seems perfectly suited to the type of assignments we discussed during my performance review. What do we need to do to get me on that project? You're not asking for permission to succeed. You're telling them where you see opportunity and giving them room to make that happen for you. One is soft, the other is firm and decisive and confident. Practice doing it over and over again until you feel comfortable with ask statements. Reason five, sticking to comfort zones. The fifth reason is sticking to your comfort zone. Growth requires stepping outside what's familiar to you. This is where my client's journey gets interesting. Up to this point, she was doing everything she was supposed to do, and then it started falling apart. Remember, there was a hint from her boss that they were worried she might quit. To me, that was an opportunity. My client was feeling pretty stuck and a little deflated. I told her to go on LinkedIn and look around for job openings that might be comparable to what she was doing now. My reasoning was because if her employer wasn't going to give her the job she deserved, then she should have other options available to her. So she came back the next week and said she found something very similar with a competitor and that she was excited about it. And honestly, that may have been one in a million. Even I didn't think she'd come back with something so perfectly aligned so fast. The only problem was that it was across the country and they required her to relocate. And she asked me what she should say to the recruiter. So look, if you want to do a job interview with the hiring manager and the only thing standing in your way is some policy agreement, then agree to the policy for now. Because my question was, what if they give you everything you wanted that your current employer can't give you and they make the offer really great? Would you consider it then? And she said, yes. So fine, you're not lying. If all you need is the opportunity to get in front of someone and find out how great the job really is. And that was uncomfortable for her. She had worked at that other company for over 10 years and she liked it there. She liked where she lived and everything about talking to a competitor felt foreign and uncomfortable to her. So, being encouraging like I am, I said, do it anyway and act like you're enjoying it. Well, they loved her. They loved talking to her. They loved her ideas and the projects and the potential for new alliances. They loved her. And then they tipped her off that they were having a hard time hiring for the position. I said, well, that's interesting. That means if they really love you, then they might be willing to negotiate with you on some requirements for the job. In the end, though, they told her they had a great offer and package for her, and it was, but only if she agreed to relocate. And she told them she needed a few days. Everything about this was uncomfortable for her. But I'll tell you what I told my client. Every successful leader has taken risks to grow. It's not about avoiding failure. It's about learning from it and using it as a stepping stone. Don't be afraid of failure. Don't be afraid of taking on new challenges. And most of all, don't be afraid to take chances. Ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? And then take a chance. The worst that could happen to my client was that she wouldn't get an offer and she'd be back at her current company staring at the same job as a director. And that wasn't so horribly bad because at least she tried. Reason 6, no clear career plan. If you don't know where you want to go in your career, it's easy to be overlooked. There's a good chance that my client was trying too hard to land somewhere with her current employer, which made Evan wonder, well, what does she really want? Yeah, she wants a promotion, but what does she really want to do? That came up because she kept telling me that she was qualified for the work in one department, but she might consider the role in another department. They aren't really related. So she may have been giving mixed signals. It's important to know where you want to go and why. I want to get promoted to this level, but I also have expertise in this field. Do those two things align? It was very important for me to have a conversation with my client once she had an offer from the competitor to consider her options. Where do you really want to go? What do you really want to do? Which offer just feels better when you think about it? For some people, a new offer would be exciting and a fresh start. For other people, it would feel unsettling and disruptive. For my client, she realized that this offer from the competitor didn't make her feel better about her situation. So I told her to talk to her boss, the one who was worried about her leaving. So she asked her boss, how do you know when it's time to leave? And her boss said, why? Do you have another offer? And my client said, actually, yes, I do, for an executive director position with this competitor. Remember, she hadn't turned down that other offer yet. And her boss said, don't do anything yet. I have to make a phone call and we can talk in the afternoon. Within hours, her boss had that skip level move budget for payroll, create an executive position, and then give her a full offer with benefits and a pay raise. I'm not joking. They were terrified of losing her because she was an expert in her field, and any competitor would benefit from having her on their team. They knew that, and they didn't want to lose her. At the same time, they really thought they could just keep her where she was for as long as possible because it worked for them. For 10 years, she was at that position, but to her, she was always supposed to be working towards something more. Create a career plan with clear goals and timelines, and make sure to share it with your boss so it's always realistic and achievable. For example, if you're aiming for a leadership role, your plan might include leading a major project in 6 months, completing leadership training in a year, and applying for that role within 2 years. Then make sure to align your career plan with the company's growth strategy to show how your goals and your knowledge and your expertise benefit the organization. Bonus tip, how to fast track your promotion. What did we learn here? Well, know your value, know your worth, sure, but also know the game. All of this for my client involved demonstrating influence. Influence isn't about playing politics. It's about building trust, showing value, and positioning yourself as a key contributor to your organization's success. Where was she getting buy-in from her boss and the skip level? They gave her support. Where was she building alliances with her colleague, Evan? And let's give Evan the benefit of the doubt here. He may not have had the level of power and influence to make anything happen. He was a middleman. There's nothing wrong with that, but figure it out early and know who you're dealing with. When did she showcase her impact? There were clues. People will tell you things if you're willing to listen. Her boss indicated that they didn't want to lose her. Then the competitor mentioned they were having a hard time hiring for the position. Two important pieces of information that my client could use to negotiate in her favor. One final note, and this one's important. My client was shocked and very happy with the counter offer. She accepted the position with her current employer and she turned down the offer from the competitor, and that made sense. She was elated to be an executive director. The bigger takeaway, however, is that she was celebrating a right sizing of her title to match her years of experience. She negotiated for herself to get something that she should have had a few years ago. And that's important. People will tell you it takes time. These positions aren't easy to come by. You need to put in the years. Sure, maybe, but build out your plan early. Figure out how many years you need to stay in a certain position before you can be considered for the next. Then start using your influence to fast track your career. Work on getting buy-in from your boss and skip level, building alliances with stakeholders, and showcasing your impact with depth of knowledge and expertise in your field. Most importantly, make sure you illustrate your executive presence. Use your ask statements to start having conversations around possibilities and opportunities. This is going to help you move into those bigger roles with ease and confidence. All right, so that's it for my video on 6 reasons why you might not be getting promoted anytime soon and how to fix them. Hey, you're closer to that promotion than you think. With the right strategies and mindset, success is within reach. Let me know in the comments below, what steps are you committing to today to move your career forward? I would love to hear about them. And if you enjoyed watching this video and you found it helpful, please make sure to give it a big thumbs up by hitting that like button, and make sure you're subscribed to my channel so you never miss another video from me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.